The day had finally come. After months of planning, recording, and late-night edits, my podcast was ready to launch. The excitement bubbling inside me felt like fireworks, each spark a dream about the conversations I wanted to start, the stories I wanted to tell, and the people I hoped to reach. For me, this wasn't just a hobby. This was my passion, my future, my voice. I had invited everyone I knew to the virtual launch party, a live stream event where I would introduce the podcast, share the first episode, and connect with my audience. My friends, my small but growing network, even a few industry contacts had promised to be there, and most importantly, I invited my parents. I imagined their faces lighting up as they watched me shine. I wanted their pride, their support. I wanted them to see that this wasn't just a passing whim, but a real career path I was building with every ounce of effort I had. But they didn't come. The night of the launch, my phone stayed silent. No good luck. No, we're proud. Not even a message saying they were sorry or busy. When I finally asked why, their words cut deeper than any rejection I'd ever known. Podcasts aren't careers. My mom said bluntly, her voice thick with disbelief. You should focus on something real, something stable. My dad didn't say much, but the disappointment in his eyes spoke volumes. To them, my dream was a joke, a frivolous pastime unworthy of their time or attention. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat and forced a smile, even as my heart shattered quietly inside. I laughed with my online friends during the stream, masking the hollow ache with enthusiasm. But every cheer from the chat reminded me of what I'd lost, my parents' faith. I remember looking out the window after the event ended, the room suddenly feeling colder, emptier. The city lights twinkled outside like distant stars, each one a reminder that somewhere, people were celebrating and believing, just not my family. That night, I cried alone, but in the depths of my sadness, a quiet fire ignited. If they wouldn't believe in me, I would make them have to. Not with anger, but with undeniable proof. I whispered to myself, wait and watch. And with that, my journey truly began, one fueled by passion, pain, and a promise to myself that someday they would see me. Not as a failure, but as someone who dared to follow her own path. The days after the launch were quiet, much quieter than I'd hoped. The thrill of finally putting my voice out, there was quickly overshadowed by the reality of the uphill battle ahead. The podcast world wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a path paved with overnight success stories or viral moments. It was a marathon of endless editing, self-promotion, and hoping anyone would listen. I dove into the grind with everything I had. Early mornings turned into late nights. I learned how to edit audio, design cover art, write compelling show notes, and manage social media. I Googled marketing strategies and reached out to guests who barely knew me. Sometimes, I'd record episodes at 2 a.m. With tired eyes and shaky hands, fueled only by stubborn hope and a cup of bitter coffee, my savings dwindled fast. I cut back on eating out, stopped buying new clothes, and even delayed paying some bills just to afford better equipment or podcast hosting fees. Each sacrifice felt like an investment in a future I couldn't yet see clearly. But the hardest part wasn't the work. It was the silence. When my parents called, their tone was sharp with doubt. Why do you waste your time on this? Podcasts don't pay the bills. My dad said one afternoon, his voice a mixture of concern and impatience. My mom echoed the sentiment. Maybe you should focus on something more practical. You're not going to get anywhere with this. Their words stung, but I swallowed the bitterness. I told myself that they just didn't understand. They never had to chase a dream that felt so fragile, so intangible. And maybe one day I would help them understand. Amid the doubt, there were small victories, tiny sparks of light in the darkness. I remember the first time I saw my listener count tick over 100. I stared at the number on my screen for minutes, a rare smile breaking through my exhaustion. Then came the first sponsorship offer, a small one, but real money. It wasn't much, but it told me that someone believed in my work enough to invest in it. Messages from listeners started to trickle in. People thanking me for an episode that helped them through a tough day, sharing their own stories, connecting across distances I'd never imagined bridging. Those messages became my fuel. They whispered, "You're not alone, keep going." So I did. Every no, every moment of loneliness, every discouraging word became bricks in the foundation I was building. I didn't just want to prove my parents wrong. I wanted to prove to myself that my voice mattered. But despite the progress, my parents' cold dismissal never changed. Their skepticism was a constant ache, reminding me that the battle was not just external, but deeply personal. And yet, beneath the doubt, beneath the weariness, I kept pushing forward, because I knew this story wasn't over yet. Months blurred into years, but slowly, the podcast grew. What started as a quiet whisper in a crowded digital world began to swell into a voice people couldn't ignore. Listeners multiplied, shares soared, and the little project I once hid in my bedroom had become a community, a vibrant, passionate family of people who cared about the stories I told. And then came the call I never expected. A journalist from Forbes reached out. They wanted to feature me in an article about young entrepreneurs disrupting traditional media. It felt surreal, almost like a dream. My heart raced as I answered their questions, shared my journey, and talked about the challenges, the doubters, and the small victories that kept me going. When the article was published, my phone exploded with notifications. Shares, comments, and congratulations flooded in from all corners of the internet. My name was in Forbes, the magazine that represented success, legitimacy, and power, and suddenly the world, and my parents, could no longer ignore me. I heard about it first through a mutual family friend who sent me a quick message. "Your parents saw the Forbes article. They want to talk." For weeks, the silence I had known so well was replaced with uneasy conversations. My parents called, texted, even showed up unexpectedly. Their tone shifted, less dismissive, more cautious. "We didn't realize, we didn't think it could work." My mom admitted during one phone call, her voice thick with regret, "We're sorry we didn't support you." My dad tried to mask his pride behind gruff words. "We were worried you were wasting your time, but this is impressive." For the first time, I felt the fragile stirrings of validation from them, but it wasn't the warmth I'd craved. It was complicated, a mix of relief, defensiveness, and something unspoken. Part of me wanted to celebrate with them, to say, "See, I told you." But another part held back, wary of how quickly they had shifted. Because this wasn't just about fame or money. It was about respect, about being seen for who I really was, even before success made it easy to notice. I realized the victory wasn't just in making them proud. It was in standing tall despite their doubts. And now the moment of reckoning had arrived. The day they finally called felt like a turning point. Their voices, once distant and dismissive, were now tentative, almost unfamiliar. My parents wanted to talk, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to listen with open arms. When we met, the air was thick with tension and unsaid words. I looked at them not just as the parents who had skipped my launch and doubted my dreams, but as flawed people grappling with their own fears and regrets. "I want you to understand something," I began, steady but fierce. "When you said podcasts weren't careers, when you didn't show up for my launch, it wasn't just disappointing, it hurt. It made me question myself in ways I'm still healing from." They nodded, eyes heavy with remorse. But here's the thing. I continued. "I didn't build this podcast to prove you wrong. I built it for me. For every hour I stayed up editing when I was exhausted. For every no I faced. For every listener who told me I mattered." My voice softened but didn't lose its edge. "I'm proud of what I've done. Not because I'm in Forbes, but because I found my voice even when you didn't believe in me." My mom's eyes shimmered with tears. "We're sorry, we were wrong, I know," I said, "and I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means I won't let your doubts define me anymore." There was a pause, a fragile moment of understanding, and in that silence, I felt something powerful, freedom. I didn't need their approval to validate my success. I didn't need their presence to feel whole, because the loudest applause I'd ever heard came from inside me. As I walked away from that conversation, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a heavy coat I'd worn for years. The sweet revenge wasn't about revenge at all. It was about reclaiming my worth, setting boundaries, and standing tall in my truth. Now, when my parents talk about my podcast, there's respect, but it's not the validation that defines me. It's my journey, my passion, and the courage to follow my own path. And that is a victory no one can take away.